The 2028 Democrat primary will be the first opportunity for the National Democrats to unveil the candidates that they have to run in 2028. And as of right now, their bench is very, very pathetic. This is a weak bench going into 2028. But today, we are going to be looking at the different candidates who could emerge as a potential frontrunner for the Democrats in 2028. And unlike previous years or election cycles where you saw Democrats and Republicans really didn't start to ramp up the 2028 or the next election talk until somewhere around the midterms, you were already seeing Democrats and Republicans, but mainly Democrats at this point, lining up, taking shots for the 2028 nomination, getting their name out there. You see people like Tim Walz, who you could say has been the most active Democrat at this point so far in the 2028 election. You see people like Pete Buttigieg hosting town halls in Iowa. You see people like Kamala Harris who have completely disappeared from the national stage. She's completely disappeared. She has no national presence as of right now. So yes, there are multiple candidates that could be in this race, but right now the Democrats do not have a leader. They do not have a front runner. And unlike the previous, 4 cycles, there was no incumbent president, no former president, anointed successor, someone who has cleared the field, which marks this as the first truly open Democrat primary since 2008. But even in 2008, it's like, I think a lot of people's, it was Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. People really thought it was going to be Hillary in 2008. Which this is leading to an aggressive and early jockeying for the nomination. And early polls showed that really no candidate is commanding an overwhelming lead at this point. You would think that someone like Kamala Harris would be leading the field. Look at Kamala Harris's record. We'll get it pulled up here real quick. This is someone who was the former vice president of the United States. She was the nominee for the Democrats in 2024. She was a senator from the most populous state in America. She was the attorney general of the most populous state in America. And she was a district attorney of San Francisco, one of the most popular and populated cities in America. This is, with a track record like this, with a resume like this, if the name Kamala Harris wasn't at the top, this person would be the front runner, hands down, no doubt. But she's just not stepping up to the plate. She didn't step up in 2024. She didn't step up in 2020, and she is definitely not stepping up right now in 2025, whether it's for the 2026 gubernatorial election in California or for the nomination for the Democrats in 2028. Because the Democrat primary, it is going to be competitive. It is almost embarrassing that someone with this track record is not leading. You look at the polls, she's got she's not even winning 1 in 4 voters. Not even 1 in 4 voters in the Democrat primary is she winning. The aggregate is at 24%, and there has been 3 polls in the last 2 months that have showed that Pete Buttigieg is leading Kamala Harris. 2 Atlas Intel polls and 1 Data for Progress poll, showing that Pete Buttigieg is leading Kamala Harris. So clearly, we do not have a front runner in Kamala Harris. I think this is the highest polling she's going to have over the next 4 years. Honestly, I don't think it's going to get higher than this. She is at the peak of her name recognition right now. She's coming off 4 years. Yes, was it a disastrous 4 years during the Biden administration? Absolutely. But still, she was at peak name recognition. It is only going downhill from here. That is the reality of this situation. On the other hand, you look at J.D. Vance, who has cleared the field here. He's leading by 30 points at this point. Yes, it's a long ways to go. It's not as crowded as a primary. And you could almost say J.D. Vance has been kind of anointed as the next successor. Not fully yet, but he's been sort of anointed as the next successor for Donald Trump. But for the Democrats, they do not have that. They do not have a clear front runner. Their party is adrift after the last really 12 years. Well, in 2028, it will have been about 12 years, 13 years at that point. But look at this. So you have people like Tim Walz. Let's go up and look at some of the candidates for the Democrats. And I guess we'll start with Pete Buttigieg here because he's on the left. Pete Buttigieg, he's been going around. He's been hitting podcasts. He's probably one of the best communicators that the Democrats have. He's a younger guy, and guess what? He checks a box. Yes, is he a white male? But he's gay. And we know how much Democrats care about identity politics. They care so deeply about identity politics. It is in their DNA. It is woven into the DNA in the fabric of the Democrat Party right now. So, and he checks a box for them, and that's a big thing. And he's a good communicator. Look, my politics are right of center. I 100% believe that he is one of the best communicators that the Democrats have as of right now. And I also believe that he has fundraising. I believe there are many Democrats, and especially big donors, who are going to step up to the plate to fund a presidential primary for him. I 100% believe that. Now you look at someone like Rahm Emanuel or Gina, I don't even know how to say her last name, to be honest with you. I think her last name, I think it's Raimondo, Gina Raimondo. You know, and she actually may not be the worst candidate for the Democrats, to be honest with you. She is much more liked in the business community, something that Democrats have really lost over the last 2 presidential cycles. They've really lost support from the Democrats. Raimondo, I think you could see that she might be a formidable candidate, but ultimately I'm not set on her. Same thing with Rahm Emanuel. I think he's out of touch with where his party is, to be honest with you, very much out of touch. But you have Stephen A. Smith. And then, of course, Governor Tim Walz, who, like I said earlier, has been the most active Democrat who is seeking the 2028 nomination. Now, obviously, he hasn't declared anything officially, but who goes on these really countrywide tours just to go on these countrywide tours? You don't. He was at the California Democrat Convention. He was in Montana. He was in South Carolina. He was in New Hampshire. He was in Iowa. He was in Ohio. He was in Kentucky. He was in Tennessee. He's been all over the place campaigning for the Democrats. And to be honest with you, I think he has a pretty good message that the Democrats should take on. I really do. He has been, how would you say this, a kind of a bumbling idiot for most of his time on the campaign trail with Kamala Harris. But since then, he's taken a much different approach to the post-presidency than you see someone like Kamala Harris. He's been all over the board talking about how Democrats, they need to fight. They need how to fight Donald Trump, how to fight the Trump administration. How are we going to fight back against what they believe is overreach by the Trump administration? But he's been all over the place. But ultimately, the guy has no shot in 2028. Like he just doesn't. He doesn't have a shot. He's pulling at what, 3%? And it's like, I don't even think half of Democrats are open to supporting him. And yes, does the vice presidential nomination in 2024 give him some national exposure? But still, no, who wants to nominate the losing vice presidential candidate? And I just don't think he has the appeal, extra appeal. Who else does he bring into the tent? Who else does he bring into the party? You know, he was brought on the ticket to really help with young men and men in general. Okay, this election, Democrats lost men by huge margins. It's like it was a terrible showing relative to the 2020 election. Terrible showing for the Democrats. But other candidates that you could potentially look at here. Andy Beshear, who's the governor of Kentucky. Definitely a much more moderate governor. He knows how to win in a state that Donald Trump won by 30 points. But I think the progressives would never let him get nominated. The progressives would try and pull him so far to the left, I don't think he could get the nomination in a Democrat primary. I think he might be okay in a general election, but outside of that, I don't think so. Cory Booker. This guy's the epitome of the Democrat Party. You know, he's standing up screaming at the sky. That's what he did for 25 hours. He sat or stood on the Senate floor in filibusters, nothing. He sat and just talked and talked. Yes, is the performative politics, is that what Democrats love to see? Absolutely. But did he actually do anything? Did he filibuster a bad bill? Did anything he do actually result in some substantive change? No. It was a waste of oxygen. It was a waste of 25 hours. It was a waste of news headlines. Totally. And then Jasmine Crockett, of course. It's going to be Jasmine Crockett and AOC who are leading the party in 2028, of course, because they're going to get so woke that they're going to have no one else except Crockett and AOC to run. You have, Andrew Cuomo, Ruben Gallego, Kamala Harris. Talk about a terrible, terrible way to go about your political career. Flushing your political career down the toilet. If it wasn't already there, your career was in the toilet. Now you flushed it down the toilet. Like we talked about, she's got this great resume. And not saying that she did great things, but you just look at the big things. Senator, Attorney General, District Attorney, Vice President, nominee in 2024. And she had donors backing her with $1.5 billion in the 2024 election. And she's just taking it terribly. Like what has she done? She's given a speech to some Australian real estate agents. She sent in a pre-recorded script or message for the California Democrat Convention. It's like, this is what you lost in 2024. The Al Smith dinner, you send in a pre-recorded message. There's all these different things where everything's pre-recorded. You can never be open and out in public view and willing to take a risk and make a mistake. Everything you have to do is be polished. But it totally blew up in your face, and she's taking the same really route that she did in 2024, and that's why I believe she will not be the nominee in 2028. Absolutely not. Some other big names that could be thrown out here, people like Gavin Newsome. Gavin Newsome, someone who has really tried to move to the center. Now, obviously, he's going to be this quasi-moderate. He's not really moderate. He's going to pretend he's a moderate, just like Democrats do. He's moved to the middle on some transgender policy issues, which then you have Tim Walz, who's a complete moron, ripping into Gavin Newsome because of his stance on transgender athletes. It is just ridiculous. It honestly is. But Gavin Newsome, obviously, he started a podcast. He's really been trying to moderate his stance. He's been trying to really open up his appeal. But the reality is the guy doesn't have appeal outside of the coastal areas. He just doesn't. The big city liberals like him? They did until he started to move to the center. Then they're like, well, now I really don't like him. They think he betrayed the party. You have AOC, who raised $10 million in the first quarter of 2025. If you want to talk about another very active Democrat outside of Tim Walz, it's AOC. She's been all over the country, too, on her Fight in the Oligarchy tour with Bernie Sanders. And with Bernie Sanders, he has a big portion of the electorate that is supporters of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is in his 80s. They need a new person to come in and take over that faction of the party, to push that faction of the party forward, to be the new leader. And I think AOC is that person. And then the fact that she raised $10 million in quarter one of 2025. You don't raise $10 million to run for re-election in a district that voted for her by 50 points in 2024. And this wasn't coming from big corporations either. The average donation was $21, and she's got $8.2 million cash on hand entering the second quarter. Now, we're almost at the end of the second quarter here. But still, she is seen by many. The most recent Atlas Intel poll showed that AOC had the highest favorability among any sit-in politician. Look at this. I think it was on page 60 something here. Let's see if we can find it down here. Look at, okay. AOC, number 2 in this poll. Buttigieg, AOC, Kamala Harris. And then if we're talking about, favorability was probably further up here. Let's find it. Here we go. Look at this. Out of any sit-in elected official, AOC has the highest favorability rating. The highest. Higher than Kamala Harris. Higher than Donald Trump. How does Joe Biden have a higher approval rating or favorability rating than Gavin Newsome? This guy's at 27%. It is just absolutely, it's kind of insane to see this. But AOC, the new front runner, the new leader of the Democrat Party, you're looking at her right here. That's the reality here. She is the new leader of the party. Unless the party, the mob bosses at the top of the party come in and stop her from taking the party over. But then you have another blue state Democrat like J.B. Pritzker. I think he's going to spend a lot of money. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't really think he has appeal outside of Illinois. I just don't. But then you have 2 Democrats. And we're going to pull this up real quick because I think it's something we really should take a look at. You want to talk about Tim Walz. Tim Walz, in a state that hasn't voted for a Republican since 1972. Tim Walz only ran re-election by 7.7 points in 2022. Look at Michigan, a state that went Trump, Biden, Trump. That are much more swingy states than Minnesota. And you have Gretchen Whitmer winning by a larger margin. Winning by almost 3 points more than Walz won in Minnesota. And then you have Josh Shapiro winning by almost 15 points in a swing state. Now, yes, you can have the conversation. Doug Mastriano was not a good candidate. There was many more candidates that were better suited to run besides him. But Shapiro still won by almost 15 points here. And that's where I think it could get a little dangerous. There's a lot of people, like Barack Obama, who thought Gretchen Whitmer, she should have been the vice president in 2020, which would have made her the nominee in 2024. Now, when it comes to Josh Shapiro, I think the guy is very well spoken. I think he's kind of like the DeSantis of the Democrat Party. He's someone he actually wants to govern well. It's not just about politics. It's actually about doing the job of being governor well. And I think he actually tries to do that. Now, I disagree with a lot of his policy prescriptions, but still, I think that he actually cares about getting the job done and doing a good job, unlike other people who just care about their clout like Gavin Newsome or J.B. Pritzker. But Democrats are not going to nominate a Jewish man. I'm sorry to say it, but they're not going to. The left wing of the party will not nominate a Jewish man. I'm sorry to break it to you, but that is going to be a big struggle. And he's not like a Jewish guy who disavows Israel. He is someone who unequivocally supports Israel. I think that's going to be a big issue when you have huge amounts of people in the Democrat Party who are Hamas supporters. Look, you can have sympathy for, starving children in Palestine. Absolutely. And you should have some sympathy for it. But it's not their fault. It's not Israel's fault. It's not. Who committed one of the largest wide-scale terrorist attacks we've seen in the 21st century? Hamas did. And Palestinian people. It was Palestinian citizens, not just Hamas. Palestinian citizens. But we don't need to get into all of that right now. But I think that's going to be a big issue with Whitmer, with Shapiro. But Whitmer, I think she could actually be a decent candidate. Look, do I think that her views, especially during the COVID pandemic, made me feel like she was a radical liberal? Yes. And she acted like one. But she is much more moderate. She knows how to appeal to Trump voters. She knows how to appeal to independents, to conservative-leaning voters. She does have an appeal there that a lot of Democrats really struggle with. And she is someone who's definitely trying to come to the middle and not move, run as far to the left as possible. But, as far as Josh Shapiro goes, I just don't think he has the national platform. I don't think he has the national platform, the name recognition that's going to be required for this. I think with enough money, you can market him, but I think he's going to really struggle. So if you're asking me who's going to be the Democrats' electability, who should the Democrats put forward? I think someone, and now you're going to have to put a lot of money behind them in order to win a general election because just name recognition. But I think someone like a Andy Beshear, I think someone like a Josh Shapiro, a Gretchen Whitmer could win. Maybe even a Pete Buttigieg. Now, with Buttigieg, I think he would struggle with minorities. We know that's his big weak spot. His kryptonite is with minorities, with black voters. If we saw depressed minority turnout, that would hurt the Democrats much more than it would hurt the Republicans. Much more. Especially among the black community. That could hurt. But I think he's a good communicator. And I think he would probably have better electability than most other people. Who are going to be the worst people to nominate? I think Kamala Harris. I think Gavin Newsome. I think AOC. They would all be terrible. Jasmine Crockett. Tim Walz. I think they would all be terrible choices for the Democrats. But this is who we're looking at for the Democrat primary as of right now. So this is going to wrap things up for today, folks. As always, drop down below, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. Let me know the thoughts. What are your thoughts on these Democrats? Who do you think should be leading the Democrat ticket in 2028? Who do you think is the Democrat with the best chances of getting elected in 2028? Let me know down below. And folks, we will catch you next time.